All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this school board special meeting with the Planning and Building Committee and our ad hoc committee. Before we begin, we'd like to start our meeting as we do with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I ask that you join us if you can. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Thank you. So it is exciting tonight. I am flanked by members of the Planning and Building Committee, and we have several of our school board members here, as well as our administration and several members of our ad hoc committee here tonight to discuss the need for our new central office / SAU building, which is an initiative we feel very strongly about this year and have for quite some time. So we're here tonight to kind of go over the plan to get the word out, why this is such an important investment for our town, and hopefully answer a lot of questions that people out there might have. So I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Planning and Building Committee, who's going to give us a presentation tonight, Mr. Rich Hendricks.
Thank you, Ken. I'm going to face this way. So these people know me, you don't. I've been the chair for the past 12, 14 years, and have worked on this particular project since 2008. We do have a video I want the public to see, and I want you to see, of the two buildings that we're talking about. First, let me introduce, the members of the Planning and Building Committee. Shane Albuquerque, Mike Aluconis, myself, Tim Groff, Gage Perry, and Finley Rothaus. Let me start off. And Laurie is our school board liaison. I apologize. Before I open up the video, I think it would be prudent to give a brief history of how this project has come to be. Our clerk and historian, Pat Heinrich, actually sent this. This is a diagram for 1995. It has on it a map discussing the future superintendent office and special services building. This is how long this has been going on. However, it wasn't until 2008 that the Planning and Building Committee actually got the original charge, which is our way of getting, a directive from the school board saying what it is they want us to do. And that was to finally take the bull by the horns and find out what is actually involved, the cost, the procedures, and everything else. So really starting in 2008, we started our work. In 2010, we did research along with architects. We could see if an office could be put into the upper elementary school. We did months of gathering data, measurement, costs, safety, consequences. In August of 2010, we actually completed a 9-page study, and that we presented to the school board. From August 2009 to March 2013, which was the deliberative session, I or a member of the committee made 13 public presentations, reports to the school board, the senior center. We did a TV informational, deliberative meeting. Tonight is a little different. In retrospect, we did the lion's share of the work. And actually, to get down to it, it is the school board that makes these decisions and should basically be the front runner to the public for it. And I don't know if that's why it didn't pass that first time, but we thought probably wasn't the best idea. It did pass on a vote of 52%, said yes. Problem is, in case you're not familiar, when you do a bond presentation, a bond proposal, you need 60% of the vote. So we got more than half saying yes, but not enough to put it through. The consequences of that is that particular building had a price tag of $1.8 million. However, that did not include any of the cost of demolition, which would have been another $300,000 or $400,000. After the vote, we kept at it. We went to every board every year and implored them to keep putting this out for the vote. You don't know what people are going to think. We considered leasing. We considered approaching existing buildings. We looked at portables, renovating existing schools, and then building new. On January 2015, we made our report. The update was given to the school board, and also after an extensive report was given by the New England School Development Council, known as NESDEC. Somebody thought an independent source would be good as opposed to planning and building committee coming up with this. And after a lot of money, they came up with the same conclusion. The only feasible solution, was economic, was a new building. In 2018, we looked at putting an addition on to the high school and kind of merging into that. After an exhaustive engineering study, that turned out to be the most expensive proposal we had to date. The biggest factor is underneath the land between the current administration building and the high school is the entire main gas to the entire high school. Moving that was close to $1 million, because you're talking a huge pipe that now has to go around the existing building and back up the street. Plus, the big thing is, if we did that, you now have a school building that has to be built to higher standards. You can't do wood frame, your steel, brick, concrete, 8-foot hallways. This is an office building. Who has 8-foot hallways? In October of 2019, we again went back to the board with an update. By then, the building would have cost about $3.2 million. The issue with that building, it was a bare bones minimum. It was not adequate. It was only 8,200 square feet. But that's what the board wanted, and we got a price for that. They did a lot of reports, and unfortunately, like boards before them, and I don't mind saying this, they did a lot of interest. We did a lot of reports, but nothing got done. It didn't go before the voters again. Unfortunately, in 2020, we had then COVID. At that point, I totally get it. These past boards had a monumental task of how to educate our kids. Capital projects were the least of their problems. So finally, this board realized how bad this situation is, and we cannot keep kicking this down the road. Every time a board said no or didn't want to deal with it, effectively cost the taxpayers close to $400,000. The nice thing is, it's been 12 years since we've had a school board that is 100% totally behind this project. So with that, I'm going to move to the front and show the video of what these two buildings look like, because people drive by this for years and had no idea what they were driving in front of. So give me a minute and we'll dim the lights and we'll have a nice video show. And the Planning and Building Committee is currently in the middle of putting on a full video for the public that we will eventually be putting on social media sites. We're not quite all the way there, so indulge me because I'm going to have to give the audio portion of this, but it's most important that people see not only the outside of these buildings, but wait till you see the insides. So the video begins with the outside view. This is the current school district administration building, aptly referred to as the green building. So we just wanted to begin with where this was, and as you see, the sign is superintendent's office. Like I say, people have driven by that for years and have no idea. So as we enter the offices, this is your main office. There was a double door that was installed for some degree of safety. We're looking around the workspace for the district administrative assistants. These are typically the people that will answer your phone calls or greet you. Next, we're going to go down the hall. And by the way, remember, these were two houses built in 1962, 3-bedroom houses. This was the original kitchen. It is now the district conference room. The sliding door is what is used to give it privacy from the rest of the staff. This is the only other exit from the building, this back door here. So anyone applying for a position is first interviewed here. This is their first impression of the Merrimack School District. Even if it's for a teacher, a preliminary interview is given here before they move on to the people that will actually hire them, but it is their first impression. So any talking that is done in this room can be heard anywhere in the insides of this building. There's absolutely zero confidentiality in any part of this building as far as conversations. So imagine if there's a personal situation that needs to be addressed and you think you're doing it in private. Going down the hallway, it should be noted that a wheelchair is unable to fit down this corridor or fit into any of those offices. Oh, and by the way, there's no elevator, which is strictly against ADA compliance. And that is not a narrow set of stairs either. So we're going to head down to the basement where we'll see the desks and the workspace that are down there. Again, just one of the offices downstairs. Notice the small windows that are at ground level. That's the only exit they have from the downstairs. We're going to come back to that area in a minute, and I'll show you why. And again, just down the hallway. As we go through here, this is our utility/storage room. Actually, the file cabinets are a little bit better than they were a few years ago, but that is all your district records. And there are no sprinklers in this building. We tried the door that goes to the outside. It's been wrangled so many times, it is no longer operative. So there's your exits out of the downstairs should an emergency occur. Good luck. And that's what's underneath the wallpaper. That is mold from years and years of moisture. By the way, the ADA compliant is 32-inch wide doors, and those are 27-inch. So right there, you have another violation. Now we'll move to the blue building across the street, which is our special services building. Again, a 1963 3-bedroom house. So we go in. Notice you walk right in, zero security. And just some desks for the administrative assistants for the special services and an office there. And I'm sorry, like I said, this is a preliminary video, so I can't get rid of that. This is just one of the offices. So again, there's no secure entrance whatsoever, so people have the ability to walk right into the building. Every other school has a safety locks and double doors. Just the desks. A hallway that a wheelchair can't go down. Keep in mind, special services, although handles mostly learning disabilities, it will handle, this handicap or wheelchairs, and they can't get down the hallway. Obviously, this is the old kitchen from the old house. And then heading towards, I guess, what would have been the garage. The wallpaper peeling, I would say that 3 times, off the wall because of the moisture and mildew. This is their work area, so to speak. The special service director was, they can't bring parents in here because apparently there are occasional volatile situations. That is a back door. So at least they have 2 egresses in this building. And then we go back through. Now, like the other building, this does have a downstairs. You see the plastic folding door that seals off the entire downstairs of this building. People are prohibited from going down there due to the severe mold levels that exist in it. They must wear masks and only personnel can go down there. It absolutely smells and basically is toxic. It's been that way since for 5 years, since the building was flooded due to the hurricane and subsequent snow damages. And then you'll see the condition of the ceiling. That's your district office. And there are files that they keep down there that are needed from time to time. I just don't know where else to put them. The dehumidifier that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So add that to an expense. And the asbestos on the floor. And again, just the wood rod above. And again, this building has no elevator either. And then we leave the building. You can't see it, but actually the threshold that is on the bottom of this door, in which we had shown it, also does not meet ADA compliant requirements. It's too high. You can't even get a wheelchair over it. So that's the video. And again, once we shorten it a little bit and put the audio on it, we will put that on our social media sites. So I'll turn it back over to Ken.
I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. Some pretty alarming stuff. And I think there were a couple of key points that Rich brought up. This is what folks new to our district see, folks who are applying to work here, folks that have to have meetings with administration. This is where they go, and this is what they see. And I that's very disappointing to me. And, I just have to, first of all, I have to commend them for how they've managed that space for so long. That's amazing that you've managed to make it work, and, you've adapted it and kind of made it a place to work, but you've done way too much work in that area. It's really kind of a sad state of affairs. So, one thing that I have kind of, since we're showing images and stuff along that line, I do have a small PowerPoint that was actually put together for planning and building, kind of as a preliminary. This is why this project needs to happen. So I will go over and do that.
While you're doing that, Ken, can I ask a question? How many people actually work in the green building? How many? 11. It's very small. And then how many are in the other building? So yeah, I can yeah. Amy just said 11 work in the green building, and then 8 in the other building. Okay. Very small spaces for that many people.
So this was a PowerPoint, I believe one of the planning and building members had worked on, and thought it was just prudent to get it out there to show folks kind of where our vision lies, and again, a few of the reasons why this is such a critical need, not a want, but a need. Going over some plans about where this building would sit. We have a perfect location for it now that the Brentwood building is no longer with us. You can see highlighted in purple there, sort of a rough estimate about where this building would go, really just right across the street from the green building and replacing where the blue building is. And it's a perfect location for it at this point. This was a draft, sort of a proposal, certainly not something that has been set in stone yet, but something just to give us an idea of what we're trying to create here and what we're going for. And as you can see, the 2 spaces that you just saw in the video would be all in one contained location, a secure location, a clean environment, all of those sensitive private materials and information that are not so protected at this moment would be protected. Workable office space, workable conference space, workable meeting space. Again, it's a no frills building. There's no spa in there. There's no jacuzzi in there. It is literally just a bare bones office building with the bare essentials needed for day-to-day work in the district. Scanning ahead. And again, a lot of comments that were already made. This is a critical need and one that is long overdue. The school board and planning and building committee have come together to present this plan to the voters about the importance of creating a safe, productive, and ADA compliant environment for district employees, students, and community members. And I always go back to that. I mean, you can have a discussion about whether the buildings we have right now are functional or good or bad, but they fail so many safety standards and modern day standards for what a building should be. That alone to me tells us that we need an upgrade. The central office building creates a first impression for potential employees, Merrimack families, and all members of the community. And as you just saw right now, they are meeting in a kitchen from the 1890s. And a lot of those appliances look original, which is kind of scary too. Some of the problems which we've discussed, built in 1958, sorry, I said 1958, it was literally a house, and it was a house bought by us in 1970. 13 full-time employees. This is in the green building. No conference space, no privacy or confidentiality, and it's just not adequate workspace. You can see they've kind of cobbled together cubicles and what would be a basement, and it's just not an equitable workspace. Very limited parking, if any. So if you're having any kind of conference or meeting, there's nowhere to park. Here's another example of just creating something out of nothing, kind of creating workspaces underneath a stairwell. and making best of what's a not so great situation. Those are all storage units that you saw in the video behind there, housing private student records. By the way, as Rich pointed out, there's no sprinkler system down there. So if anything were to happen, those are gone. There is no exit down in the basement. If for some reason there needs to be an escape, people are in trouble. There's nowhere to go except those tiny windows. One egress from the building, as I mentioned, no sprinkler system, and the mold, which is a health concern. It's in the walls, it's in the building, causing allergy, asthma. It's an irritant, and the ventilation is again inadequate. And again, probably the most important takeaway, it is non-compliant. It is not compliant. A person in a wheelchair cannot access buildings or any of the office spaces. There is no fire escape. If you were to open a business in this building, it would not be allowed to open. It would be shut down immediately. So if you were trying to create, your dream of opening a brick and mortar store, and you use the space like this, it wouldn't happen. You wouldn't even be able to sign away on that building because it would be shut down immediately. No conference rooms for privacy when discussing confidential topics, storage and protection and retention issues for critical records. So these are student records going back several years, students who leave us and then need some information. We store and contain a lot of that in a space that we hope stays safe right now, but we can't guarantee it. It's a poor work environment, and it's a lack of an organizational system. Once again, just due to the space that we're working with. They've made it work. They've definitely made the best of the bad situation, but it shouldn't be that way. So one of the main takeaways from tonight, we hope, is to provide a step forward for what our next steps are. Tonight is being one of those major first steps, attending presentation, providing feedback. We hope to meet several members of our ad hoc committee tonight, who were very gracious for helping us out with this cause. Being willing to support the school board and planning and building committee by giving support to building through networking. We think this is going to be a very critical piece of getting this building passed, is just spreading this information around. And in a year where, property taxes and school board budgets and everyone's budgets are being very highly scrutinized and looked at and picked apart, which we totally understand, and we're certainly doing our part with that as well right now. But we think, once again, with the right networking and the right communication, I think we can get support behind this, because of the amount of people we have in the room here. That's going to be essential, is getting the word out. The video, this presentation, all of that stuff. Attending budget committee meetings, making sure that we're letting our colleagues on the budget committee know that this is a huge priority for us. So when they're making decisions about budgets, as they're doing right now, that's always in the back of their head, whether it's to add something, to cut something. Keep in mind that this warrant article is a huge priority for us, and it never hurts to remind them about that. Having open houses to discuss this project. The administration has made themselves very available. If you want to come and take a look at the building, you're welcome to come do so. Make an appointment, please. Don't just show up. But having those discussions with your neighbors, talking to folks at the grocery store, at the post office about if the conversation comes up, why this is such an important thing. There is a couple of initiatives right now to get some signs, whether it's school board committee members getting those signs out there, putting it on lawns. We're probably all a little sick of political signs right now, but this isn't a political sign. This is, a very important need for our town. Attending the deliberative session will be huge. That's a big one. I think we have a date, and I remember Matt saying a date, but I don't remember the date. March 4th is our deliberative session that'll be held at J. Muse. And that's going to be a big one because, of course, we all know at our deliberative session, folks are able to make any motions they wish to make, and it's very possible that this could be dead in the water at that session. So we want to make sure that we have a good supportive audience there to talk about why this is such a benefit to our town. And then, of course, voting was probably the ultimate end game here, is making sure folks get out there and vote, just like you should do tomorrow. Timeline, we're currently in the December, January portion, obviously, forming the ad hoc committee to support the mission of a new building, webpage, attending budget meetings, addressing community concerns. The next stage starts very soon here, which is lawn signs, and then once again getting the word out. And then again, the big day is attending the deliberative session and then getting the vote out in April. So, and then I believe that was it for that. All right, I will move back to my spot now. You want to introduce them now? Sure. So I thought it would be good, since you've heard from Rich and myself, to introduce or have some of our members from our ad hoc committee just come up and introduce themselves, if you're comfortable doing so. We would just ask that you come up to the microphone and just state your name. Yeah, we'd love the audience to get to know who you are so that we can put some names to faces. So go ahead.
Been a long time since I've been in this room. Andy Schneider, live on 34 Woodward Road here in town. Was a member of the aforementioned school board from like 2012 till right during the pandemic, and on the budget committee before then. So I'm certainly very much in the middle of a lot of what we're in right now, but also very strongly in support of this. A couple things that are important to bring that weren't discussed that I think need to be called out is the boards that were here before you didn't ignore the issue with the building and frankly tried not to kick the can down the road, but there were headwinds that we were facing during those years. The first of which I haven't heard anybody talk about today, but it's important, is bonded debt. For the first time, this current board is left with no bonded debt. We had the middle school at $800,000 a year that was there up until this year. So frankly, that is one of the big stopping points that we as a board dealt with all the time. The other thing that we were able to do is purchase the land where Brentwood sat. Now we can argue whether the building was worth it or not, but the land was the important part, because if you look at the plans, putting that building where Brentwood was is the key. It creates a complex. You know, we start to promote the plan. It's now a campus. It's now an environment that's very important. And then COVID came. I mean, I think that the board that was in place before COVID was ready to start moving forward, but COVID got in the way and sort of paused everything for 2 to 3 years. So that being said, I just wanted to sort of put that out there. But myself, as well as previous board members, as well as other members of this ad hoc committee, are here to support this, make it happen. All the reasons you guys have said that it's deficient, needs to be done. This isn't new. I mean, Superstorm Sandy came and ripped a roof off the blue building and made the downstairs bad, and that sort of put a nail in the coffin of the blue building in the middle of all this. And the superintendent and staff have done amazing things with the green building just to keep it functional. But I'm here to support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
A little high for me, but I'm Gary Krupp. I'm for Ministerial Drive. I was also around during the first time this was proposed on the budget committee at that time. I don't see a lot that's changed, frankly. So I'm interested. I'm not necessarily here to support or oppose. I guess I'm here. I was asked for my opinions, and so that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Christensen. I'm also a member or the chairman of the trustees of trust funds. And as such, we look at the finances for the town Merrimack Village District and the school periodically. And one of the things that we see is, and I've had this discussion for many years with Jim O'Neill, the school district does not use capital reserve funds very much. The town and the Merrimack Village District do. My point there is that voters will vote for capital reserve funds. So I have one suggestion, that is you put a capital reserve fund on the ballot as well as the bonding issue. And the reason for that is a fallback, that if the bonding issue doesn't get the 60%, you started a capital reserve fund. If you started a capital reserve fund in 2008, by now you'd be able to pay cash for the building, even at today's expanded prices. But when you build the building, and I think you will, you're going to need furniture. The trustees bought furniture for the libraries in 4 schools over the last couple of years, about $400 and some odd thousand. So we have a feeling for what that kind of stuff costs. And I would think if you had a capital reserve fund for, pick a number, $300,000, and it's properly worded, then if you pass the bond, you can use that money to furnish the building. I can't imagine that that furniture that's been in those places is really adequate. So there's a financing issue there that I think might benefit all the proposals in a variety of ways to give some flexibility and provide some needed funds for things that are, I'm going to call them side issues like furniture. In the meantime, I think one of the issues that has come up in the past that may or may not be easily defended, and this goes to the past, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but when you talked earlier about meeting people and talking in the grocery store aisles, there's always that question of, well, what about other locations? So we talked many, many years ago about using the library, and then of course we never built a new library, so the old one wasn't available. But the town is now talking about a new safety center. That opens up the medical building / police department for some of the municipal use. Just a thought that those issues are going to be asked in the background. And if you don't want to discuss them, or you don't have time to discuss them all at the deliberative session, then those considerations should be put out in some of the informative bulletins that you're going to do between now and March 4th. One other question that has come up in my mind, because when I was chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee, we lost 2 buildings, the MYA building and the function hall at Wasserman. And I say lost. The fire department came in, did their safety inspections for ADA compliance, sprinklers, and size of the windows, and those types of issues, and said, you can't use the building anymore. With all that we hear about these 2 buildings that, or the greenhouse now, the fact that somebody is allowing continued use of this building with all of those deficiencies is an embarrassment as far as I'm concerned. And it ought to be shut down. If that means you have to get portable classrooms or rent some commercial space someplace downtown until you get something going, putting people's health at risk by continuing use of those buildings is just shameful.
Thank you. Do we have any other ad hoc committee members here tonight? I know there were some that couldn't make it.
Dave, do you want me to bring the microphone to you?
That would be great.
Okay.
He's on it. And while we're moving the microphone around, just so folks watching at home know, the school board did put out a call. I want to say back in November. I could be off on that. We can check the minutes. We did put out a call for folks interested in participating in the ad hoc committee, and we did receive some response to that. And then just to kind of round out the numbers, we did send out some invitations to folks who have noticeably been involved in the town of Merrimack for quite some time. So people who are invested in schools, people who come to meetings, have questions and things like that. So that was how we put this committee together. So go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Dave Hackett. I've been here in the community since 1967, 32 years at the high school. And I've since then been working in Nashua. I was shocked the first time that I went into the superintendent's office, that building, how many people were stuffed into a really inadequate area. And that was many years ago. It's much worse now. The video, I think, would help to convince many people. As far as the ad hoc committee is concerned, I'm certainly the junior member of this at the age of 81, so it's sort of interesting. But I certainly support the building some much more adequate and ADA compliant. As you can see, I have a bit of equipment that I used to get around at this point, and that's different than when I was here in the district. So I certainly would like to make sure that we're ADA compliant as we go on. Thank you.
All right. Any other members? I think those were the four that I saw here. Go ahead, Andy.
I'm going to ask a procedural question.
Yeah.
So how do you see the rest of this meeting going on as far as input, conversations?
That's what I was about to. That's what I was
Straight
about
in
to
for
get
you.
to.
And by the way, just so you know, Mr. Hackett, there are several of us here that had him as a teacher in high school. So he's not junior by any stretch, but we remember him.
And I believe Lori had some notes from a member
And-
as well.
And my father, Paul Goodrich, wanted to be here tonight, but he was physically not able at the last minute. So he prepared some notes. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things you've already said, but he said he was on the school board for 9 years. And during those 9 years, the school passed 6 warrant articles on school buildings. And he said it's really important that we have one message and that all of our facts are straight. So I know that when people ask us questions that we have all the same information. He really feels that before the vote that we really need to market this new building and let people know that it's not ADA compliant, that it's been the same SAU building since he was on the school board. He also thought that maybe we should do a video broadcast with Rosemary Rung. Tonight, set a list of organizations and ask people who are in support to go to the organizations such as Senior Citizens, MYA, even places like Shaw's to set up a informational table. And also work with the Planning and Building Committee to get the signs out, to get it out to people and really create the website and make sure people know why it's important to vote for this project. And Dave, he's 89, so if you...
All right. So to answer Andy's question, I was at this point in the meeting, I was going to just open it up for discussion about next steps, where we see where we could have the most impact in getting the word out for this important project. So I was just sort of considering this to be kind of an open discussion amongst the folks in the room.
Well, can I just suggest that maybe we should go over the numbers?
Oh, how much it costs?
Yeah.
Sure, we can do
Because
that.
I feel like we've said a lot of things about the need, and the big question hanging in maybe the average person who hasn't been really paying attention would be this outline of the cost. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now we are looking at a project total of about $6,999,000. I don't know. Do we have a slide for this? No, we don't. Okay. But we can make this material available for sure. This is based on a draft that was provided to us by the designers at Marinese Architects. And this is for an 11,100 square foot new SAU building with a 2,200 square foot basement in the old red building site. The conceptual cost estimate is a $5,995,000 just overall for cost, and then addressing things like equipment, factoring in about $20,000, utility back charges $15,000, and then administrative costs, which goes to surveying, engineering, insurance, materials testing, inspections, legal. All of that wraps up around $620,000. So there's your price tag. And we do have a breakdown of what goes into that. Once again, we don't have that up on the site right now, but we can certainly make that available. There were a couple places that submitted quotes, I believe. We do have Matt Chevanel here tonight, who was kind of leading this up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Matt? Just so I don't say anything incorrect. Oh, okay. We could have brought it to you.
Yeah, currently we have around 4 quotes. They're all around the same ballpark, and they've been reviewed by Marinese Architects, who have done the middle school, who have done the kindergarten construction that we had, who've done Bedford High School, Ross Lurgio Middle School, who've done all Pinkerton Academy. This company's been around for like 40 years. They're the best in the business. What they're doing is Frank, the owner, and now Paul, his son, he says, you know, the quality of the building is in the materials used. That's what he always says. This isn't a Golden Palace. This isn't a Taj Mahal. This is a building that's going to last for a long time. And it's meant to be that way because of the quality of the materials we're going to use in the construction portion. We're not going to put a 10-year roof on it. We're going to put a roof that lasts. And this budget reflects such. And when you look at it, this is going to be bid out anyway. But there's not a good set of bid documents, so we have to kind of look at each bid to kind of figure out if they're all apples to apples. But when you look at the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank schedule, you know, the first year payment is $172,500. The middle school last year payment was $793,000. So there's a big dip in bonded debt. The highest year's payment on this is in the new schedule, $676,000, which is still considerably less than the middle school bond of $800,000.
Matt, could you just
yes.
what was the length of the bond? You were
15 years.
Okay.
We're looking at 15 years. 10 years was we wanted to get underneath the middle school last payment. So in order to do that, we did 15 years. So that was something that we put together. This also includes, seeing we already took down the Red House, which thank you very much for the current board for approving that finally. We've got that out of the way. It's a nice pad site. It's got great fill. All the foundation's gone. All the utilities were gone. We actually found an in-ground swimming pool there. So if anybody knows the history behind the in-ground swimming pool where the Brentwood building was, I really appreciate who put that in the first place. Just the part of historical reference, you know. I like little details like this. But this also includes the cost of demolishing the blue house, creating parking, and demolishing the greenhouse, which at this point in time, we're just kind of leave as open green space because there's not a whole heck of a lot of open green space when you approach the high school. It's all asphalt, guardrails, and light poles. So it's kind of a good total solution where 2 existing buildings get demolished, site plan work happens, parking gets done, everything is finished, it's ready to walk in. The only thing we don't have is, you know, FF&E, furniture and fixtures. And well, we have fixtures, but there's no new furniture in this. But I'm fairly confident with this price tag that we could fit furniture in there. There's going to be some adjustment of these numbers. There's going to be some fine tuning of these numbers, and we'll come up with something that we feel we can live with. But for right now, this is a good budget that gives us the means to do the job correctly. And what we want to do is we want to do it correctly the first time, and we want to make sure all the materials are really, really nice and durable over the lifespan of this building, which is really going to last into perpetuity when you think about it. We're not going to do this again in 25 years. This building's going to last forever. So that's kind of the cost thing. It's around 11,000 square feet, including the 2,000 square foot basement. It's grown since the first time we put this up. The first warrant article we had was, I believe, Pat, and correct me, is $1.5 million. That was for a steel building, kind of like Zyla's used to be. That was for a steel building. That wasn't for a stick-built building. That was for steel building. And as far as capital reserve accounts, I think before we put the building up as a warrant article, we did have a capital reserve account for this for $150,000, I seem to remember, and it got voted down. So we tried the capital reserve account first for $150K. It got voted down. The reason for that is just put the building up. So then the following year came, we put the building up, and that got voted down. And then we disappeared for like 13 years. We just kind of let it lay. And this is the first time that it's actually coming back, because right now right now seems to be a good time with the middle school debt retiring to slide that into that slot. So that's the rationale behind it. And it is needed. You can see from the video that those are kind of substandard conditions. The ADA piece is really very important, especially for a school district. There's no sprinkler system in the building. There are multiple issues in the building. And, you know, from another standpoint, if you're looking at how we present to others when they first come in here, it's not a good look for Merrimack. And I think Merrimack's much better than that. And I think we need to put our best foot forward, and I think this building will help us to that end. So that's just the financials and the rationale behind everything and where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I think when you say like people come in and it's not a good look, you don't mean it's not pretty. I mean, it's not, but that's not what you mean. When you say that, I hear you say it's not a good look that we allow our employees to work in an unsafe and unhealthy work environment, right? It says something about us that I think isn't true. Right? I don't think that's how we value our employees. I would like to think that's not how we value our employees. It's not how I feel about how I value our employees. I don't think that's how our town feels. But to have them walk into this building that is not a safe work environment in any feasible way is, as you said, shameful.
Yeah. I mean, I can recall a story when I was first being interviewed by Jim O'Neill here back in August of 2020. I had my wife take me down here so she could show me where central office was. And it's kind of like, this is where I'm going to be. Wow, this is really interesting. I've never seen such. And I was coming from Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District. And before that, I worked for the town of Hooksett as the finance director. We had much better accommodations than this. I remember talking to Jim saying, well, you can kind of tell that a lot of the money must be spent elsewhere because it's sure not spent on administration. And, you know, it's been home for almost 24 years for us. A lot of us who have been there for a very long time. It's served its purpose. We've made it do. Sometimes it's very difficult. You know, sometimes things happen like floods in the buildings, and we take care of it the best we can. But we're still in a situation where the main concern for myself is the people downstairs. That's your human resource department. Your human resource department is down a set of stairs where there is no egress. The windows, the casement windows, they don't count as egress. The bulkhead in the back does not count as egress. If you have a disgruntled employee and you're down there in that space, the only way out is that stairwell. And that, from a safety standpoint and from a life safety standpoint, if there was ever a fire at the top of the stairs, that scares me and that concerns me. And we have had the fire department, the Merrimack Fire Department, come over and do an inspection. The fire department, they're short-staffed. That's all I can say. They are short-staffed, and they're working as hard as they can to get us that inspection report. But it's been a couple of months. And so we've been waiting for that to see what the outcome of that is going to be. So in order to do the narration, as Rich was talking about, it'd be nice to have that so we're not making any misstatements, because we don't want to we don't want to sway the public one way or another that's not true. But I want to see the report from them and see what they have to say, and we'll pick off points from that and incorporate it in the building. But yeah, I think now is a good time. This is a good plan, and it's a good jumping off point. You know, this can be a turn the page kind of thing with Merrimack. You know, let's get it done.
Matt, I want to bring up, because I agree with Chris Christensen, it's embarrassing. However, and I couldn't find this before I got here, the portables are fine. Hopefully, do you recall the price of 1 year's worth of portables? That
they were 48 grand a piece, so it's around 100 grand
per year.
Plus per year. For the two portables we put in front of the upper elementary school when we were building the middle school, that's the only place we could have put them, because if not for that, we would have put them on a ball field, and you can't do that in Merrimack, because they would have come for you. They would have come for me, right? And I wouldn't like that. So when we put the portables on, it was around $100,000 a year. Plus, you know, the delivery and the setup, add an extra 25, 30 grand for the setup, because you got to sync the fire alarms with the existing building because they were tied in. You got to put gas in. You got to put, I mean, there's a lot.
Well, don't forget also
stuff.
those portables didn't have bathrooms.
No, they did not.
So you've got an administration office that's going to need bathrooms.
Correct.
And you're going to need more than two, because you've got a lot more people with offices as opposed to just an open classroom.
That's correct.
What I'm trying to drive at is if you could vote on this in 4 months, we could avoid that cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you don't, I think Chris has a valid point. And then you're out $400,000. That's for nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the safety of the people, I don't diminish that. But it's that 400,000 would go a lot towards a new building.
And you know, Rich, you and I, we've been all over this town. We've been in office buildings. We've been in little kind of areas that could be an office. We've traveled this town for like a year or so looking for rental space.
Well, I think when people look at commercial buildings and something available, that's the stopping block. You buy a house, but you don't buy office buildings. People lease them to you.
Correct.
Well, now what do you do when the lease is up in 5 years? What do you do when a landlord says, you know what, I got an offer for this building. I sold it, and your lease is now valid. So then we come back here 5 years from now and we have an $11 million building to put up. So leasing never, ever makes sense when you're looking at something that you want for 25, 30, 40, 50 years. And we've looked at a lot of interesting. Plus, we've also looked at offices that are blank slates.
Yeah.
They're, 8,000 feet of openness. The cost of putting walls up and then, all the other amenities up, it just became ridiculous. Like you said, most time, I never saw a building for sale. It was always a lease. And to me, that's a dead end.
Yeah, I even remember, going around where you're looking at the old Shaw's Plaza with all the electrical hanging down. People say you can just move right in there, but that was like a triple net lease where somebody had the parking lot, somebody had the building, and somebody owned the ground underneath. I have no idea. And so, when the Shaws left, they didn't want to sell it right away or get rid of it right away because they didn't want Hannaford's coming in. So they held off for years. And so we couldn't get that. So there's a lot of opportunities we had that we looked at. So we can do that again, but it's I don't see anything in driving around and looking that is good space that's going to be a serviceable, I use that as a minimum, a serviceable space for any kind of central office.
I will address when you say this public safety building. Here's my take on that. That's an if. It's I don't think they even have a building plan yet. So that's got to be 3 years before people even vote on it. Then you got a year to build it. What happens when you wait for years and people vote that down? Well, we still are in the same situation we are today, except we go from $7 million up to $9.5 million for the same building. I don't look at that as a feasible alternative. If it was for sale today, sure, that would definitely be worth looking at, although it would cost hundreds of thousands because it's a police station and a jailhouse. But to come in with this, well, it might. That's just
Well,
not-
as,
we-
as,
that's
as somebody
not gonna
mentioned,
cut it.
we were supposed to we were supposed to occupy the library
Yeah.
when the new library was built.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden the library capital reserve account went goodbye.
Yeah.
And the library never got built.
And here we are.
And so now here we are. And so now we're looking at the police station, which is a former doctor's office, right?
Yep. Yeah.
It has no elevator. So in order to get to the lower floor, you have to drive around the other side. So if you're somebody in a wheelchair and you want to get down to the bottom level, let's say the bottom level is HR, you got to get back in your car, drive around to the other side, go in the back door. So there's lots of things about the police station. I'm saying it could be a serviceable building, but it's not going to be a walk right in and just occupy building. It's going to be heavy renovations to get
Thanks,
that
Matt.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the plans for this and I'm counting, and correct me if my counting is wrong. It's going to house 25 people, which means
Absolutely.
it's going to take the occupants of the green building and the special services building, plus people who are scattered, like I think of Sarah Parado, who's in the high school, and probably other people that are scattered elsewhere, maybe in the high school or elsewhere that I don't even know. And you're going to pull them all
you're
into
right.
one building. So all of our administration is then housed together so that they can do the work that they do together.
We have our technology director in the high school. We have our computer systems manager that makes Power School live and breathe in the high school. It would be nice to have all those people, including, the special ed director, the SEL director, the homeless liaison, Title I, that's remote right now. They're not even in the office. To have everybody together to get that kind of conversational synergy going, where you have offhand conversations in the hallway that lead to some really terrific stuff. We don't have that. And people probably say, well, that's kind of a soft argument, isn't it? But no, not really. Not really.
There's also wasted work time in traveling around to meet with people who are in different
Absolutely.
buildings and reimbursing mileage and all of that stuff that goes with that. So it's not just the synergy, it costs us in resources and time to have people scattered around.
If the high school conference room which was built in 2001, as part of the high school edition, isn't available, that's our only spot. Unless we were going to go take over the band room in the middle school. That's the only other spot. So there's no meeting area. There's no training area. If Amy, our esteemed assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and assessment, wants to do a district-wide training, you got to rent out a hotel room somewhere, I guess, because there's nothing there. So that's why the conference room at 1,400 square feet is really important.
So I was just going to say, I do appreciate Mr. Christensen pointing out the police station, because part of the reason we wanted the ad hoc committee come together is we want that kind of information, because that's going to be the pushback that the general public has. Like, well, why wouldn't you, if they eventually do some central office, some safety complex, take that building? And it's just not adequate for many, many reasons, and it's not big enough. But that was a really good point. And I would like to go back to Mr. Crump to see, after all of this, could you give us more information on where you think we need to have more information?
Yeah, so I got here, I have not looked at this issue since 2013, 2014. So I started to kind of come up to speed while we were talking. And the first thing I wrote was, why am I here? And as you guys have been talking, I think I understand. I'm here as a dissenting opinion. I'm here to tell you what you're missing. So you guys are all convinced you need this thing, and I think you're probably right. There's no question that the facility is inadequate. The question is whether the project's worth support or not. And so I think Chris Christensen took my first one, which is like when I watched this video, first of all, I wonder, is it a current video? You want to tell that? last week, or is this back when we were doing this in 2012? Because I think we had a similar video. Yeah. So you want to know that it's current. You want to say that, what is driving the project cost growth? This project get bigger? Is it just plain inflation? Things are more expensive now. I mean, it's like 300+% by my math, I think, if I took Rich's numbers correctly. So that's a massive amount of growth. We talked about 11 employees in the green building and 5 in the other. That's like 16 people. I see 18 private offices, I think.
She said 11 in the green, 8 in the special services building.
8, okay.
Oh, Mark under the stairs.
Yeah.
So that's 12 and 8. That's
then-
20.
and
And
then
then,
again-
the scattered people at the high school.
Yeah, because we're bringing
Okay.
in people from the outside.
25 then
Yep.
housed.
So I'm saying that people are going to see 18 private offices here and a couple of cube spaces when they all work in cubes themselves. And I'm not saying that the private offices aren't what's needed. I'm just saying that I think is going to be a criticism. And that Chris's point, the thing that I wrote is watching that video is, does this existing facility meet egress requirements? I mean, we would be shut down in a heartbeat at where I work. And if it doesn't, and then you have a cost, whether it's private or whether you go out to a temporary solution. So there's a thing there. I would definitely want that fire report. And then the other thing is, I wondered how many of these things are hard requirements and how many of these are nice to haves. I don't think the conference room is a hard requirement. I think it's probably a minority opinion here. I think this is really an outgrowth of what we wanted back in 2012, which was a big facility, so we wouldn't have to depend on the town to have school board meetings. It still has the same flaw it had back in 2012, which is no media room, no equipment for live broadcasts. So Merrimack TV would have to bring equipment just like they used to do back in the days they went to the cafeteria, so that'd be a problem. So if you're going to fund this as that kind of room, you need to make sure there's a media room that's fully outfitted with all the equipment that Merrimack TV needs, and that's part of the costs and the equipment costs. I think, Rich, your presentation still needs work. I mean, I think that's part of the problem. I think you come across as accusatory towards the voter, that it's his fault that this thing is not fixed, and that, when you say things like the basement is basically toxic, so is it toxic or is it not toxic? You got to be careful with that language. I think Matt had it right, which is you have to say the facts and the facts only. Don't use emotionally charged language, because then it feels like I'm being manipulated into a vote. And then the files, I mean, that was an interesting walk through the basement. I can't imagine that those are all active files. Some of those have to be archived files, so why the hell are they still there? I mean, put them someplace else, any place else. We have storage and facilities somewhere.
Yeah, they are HR files, and we have to keep them
Secure.
forever.
Understood, secure.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have non-active files we take off site too. We just put them in a secure storage area. So I just be careful about the points that you're saying, that because here's what I kind of wrote down, and this is just from my memory. It may not be exactly correct, but I think this is true. I think that there's, at least in the voters' minds, a history of bad decisions by the school board. I think the red building is one of them. I think we paid a premium for that just to bulldoze it. I think a lot of people were pretty peeved about that. The middle school, which we built on a bargain basement because we couldn't get it passed, so it kept going lower and lower until we could get it passed. We got it passed, and then we had to replace the roof and the sidewalks before the bond was even expired. So it was done cheaply. And so that's the materials thing.
Exactly.
If we cheap out on it, then. And so those are the notes I've written down since I've gotten here. Those would be points that I would want to make sure are in your talking points that you can shoot down. Hope that helps.
So yeah, it does help. It helps a lot. I really appreciate that. That's great. I just want to say, like, that's a great point about the middle school. And I think when you talk about, like, why are these people all have private offices? Because I don't want to build something that's only going to be perfect for right now. I mean, I think we want to build something that, we may eventually have to start putting cubicles within those private offices, right? But how many people, like when you asked about the conference room, how many people do you have at your leadership meeting once a week when you get everybody together?
We have, just for the basic core leadership team, we have 21 people. And if we have anyone else come in, the room is really stretched.
Okay, sorry. Oops, he doesn't have a microphone. So 21 people is what Mr. Olson just said. 21 people, and if there's anybody else that maybe comes in as a guest or to talk or to train or do any of that, right? So I don't know exactly how many people would fit in that room, but that's the kind of thing. Is the idea that we're going to then hold our school board meetings there? That's the first I've heard of that.
Possible.
Used
There
to
was
be.
there was
That-
a discussion
yeah.
about that being a possibility.
Possible.
Okay, so that's a
is-
good point about the media room then.
Yeah, that is a possibility. I talked to Nick LaValle about that, and if we do such, we have to involve him in the process.
Yeah.
But right now, initially back in the day, we were talking about holding board meetings there. Personally, I like this spot. It's already wired. It's already here. Justin doesn't have to move. Well, Justin's the man over there, right? He's waving. Nick and Justin, they don't have to move any equipment. This is a nice facility. So we could if we wanted to. It's up to the pleasure of the board at this point in time.
You'd also want to talk about why the conference room in the high school 100 yards away is not usable, especially when you're bringing people in for the first time to see the district and this impression that we're worried about. That's where I'd bring him. I wouldn't bring him into the green building. There's probably competition for that room. I mean, like
There
our
is,
conference room
yeah.
at work. So,
Yeah.
but it could be worked.
I think it's because it's the one conference room of any magnitude in the entire district. It's the only place, and like one room for a district this size. We're fighting for space.
But don't get me, I appreciate what Mr. Krupp is saying. I love hearing what he's saying.
Yes, and I think the thing we all appreciate about you is the fact that you're not afraid to point out the holes in an argument.
Right.
So, thanks for being here.
And I just want to console him because the Buffalo Bills lost. Gary.
Oh, Matt, you're ruining it.
I'm sorry. I had to do that.
But Taylor Swift won. So
Yeah, I was rooting for the Bills, Gary. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just going to say, and Gary, when we get to the signs, can we put one on your yard? And you don't have to answer tonight.
wow, that was a hard sell.
That's a hard sell.
Go ahead, Andy.
So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Gary because Gary and I never really see eye to eye on a lot of things over the years, but he's absolutely right on most of these things. They're the questions that voters are going to ask. They're the things we have to be prepared for. I just kept coming back to one of the things that in industry now, it's all about FAQs. It's all about frequently asked questions. You've got to anticipate what people are going to ask before you put something in front of them. I mean, that's how you succeed. And let's put it this way. You don't always succeed, but you stand a better chance of succeeding if you do that. So for me, the questions that he started raising about, have we looked at buildings around? I know, I mean, if Rich and Matt have gone and looked at buildings, we need to know that. We need to say, if you go to a building, understand it could go away in 5 years if they sell the building. It's going to cost you this amount over 20 years or whatever. You've got to plot that out. The graphics that you've got about the occupation of the current buildings, we know that based on the past experience that you could move the sped part to the JMUs, but there's a whole lot of issues with that, with the playground and egress and access. I mean, I remember the meetings that we had on that, back in the day. So these are all things that you have to prepare for if you're going to do it. And it's not selling the building. I mean, first of all, I think that video you took was very recent because that was the redesigned stuff. So it wasn't done 10 years ago. It was done pretty new.
Yeah, 2 months ago is what he said.
Right. 2 months.
I think we need to make sure that's known, though, because if you're in
Right.
question.
Right, because there are things in that building that weren't that way the last time I was in there, which is only 3 years ago, right? So that's changed. But to me, just give you my thought on this, is while I'm still certainly in support of the building, you've got to sort of head off all the reasons why somebody would think we don't need the building before you do that. And frankly, one of the most important, the headwinds we as a board used to have, I'm going to use an expression called clearing the deck. I know you guys are going to be talking about your capital improvement plan, your warrant articles. You got to clear the deck as much as you can, because if you're going to put this out there, and it's your most important thing to do, besides maybe the support staff contract, if that gets resolved, you have to be careful. Do you need that roof on the other school? Do you need the other things in the CIP this year? Because people are going to look at it, even though it's only $170,000 this year. It's great. It's a bargain. The first year on a bond is always a bargain. It's like nothing. The next year is 600 and some thousand, but the first year is 170. But voters don't see it that way. They look big ticket item. It's going to cost this much. even though you only pay a little this year, they're looking at that. So you've got to plan something we on the ad hoc committee have no control over. This is what the boards are going to do between the budget committee and you guys. You've got to anticipate that. So these are just thoughts like Gary had. I'm sitting here listening to it.
So going back to, I think it's really important that everything that people have said, it's going to be really important that the school board has one message and we have all the right information. So when the ad hoc committee and the planning and building committee go out to the public, that when they say, well, how many, offices are there going to be and how many employees do we have all that correct information. So that's work that we still have to do. And I think moving forward, I know one of the things that the planning and building talked about were the signs. So I didn't know if Shane wanted to talk a little bit about that. Or Gage.
But actually, before we move on to signs, can I ask one more question that sort of connects more to the conversation we were just in before we move on to a whole new one? That'll give you time to think about what you're going to say about the signs.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Okay. So, so I turned my microphone off. Speaking of things that I've been hearing that people say is, do we not have space in our district in various classrooms in various buildings, right? I know the answer to this question, but I need, who can speak intelligently to that? Because I think people say like, don't we have space in, this school and this school and this school, and we just spread them all out and they can all, share classroom space and that's fine. And they're going to have, that I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of, let's just spread them out in the space that we have. And I think that's something that people would like to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear. I know the answer to that question, but I would like to hear somebody explain.
Yes, thank you. We are at the present time doing a space utilization of every one of our school buildings. I can tell you unequivocally there is no single building that has enough available space to house a central office function in it. We would still have to be distributed across the town. If you would allow me for just a minute, some of the things I've heard. First of all, Gary, I agree that emotional hyperbole turns people off. So we stick with the facts, and that's what our objective is to stick with the facts. The facts are we have a building that is unhealthy. We have a building that is not accessible. And that in and of itself should be enough to sell the project. We live a nomadic existence in the school district right now. Picking up on what you said, Naomi, we have to travel from one place to another to try and make our meetings fit. The high school conference room, which is absolutely packed with 21 people, can't accommodate any others, is the only spot that we really have to meet. In our office building, there can be no more than 3 or 4 people meeting with us individually. It's very, very difficult to have a family. We oftentimes meet with families whose children are having some struggles in schools. There's virtually no place to sit. Recently, I presented a price index graph to the budget committee. Sent it to all of you also. That showed the trend of the last 10 to 15 years of non-residential construction inflationary impact. It's extraordinary. So a project that right now is 6.5, 6.9 million could have been accomplished 8, 9, 10 years ago, probably for 2 million. If it continues to be delayed, as some of you have noted, the price just continues to escalate and it becomes progressively more difficult. Particularly with the opportunity now with the retirement of the middle school bond, becomes a wonderful opportunity to fit an appropriation in there with no incremental increase. In fact, a decrease. My concern is also because I've seen this situation, I've experienced this situation before in a community in which I worked for 35 years in Massachusetts. If you continue to defer decisions, you ultimately reach a point where you have to make emergency decisions. And that short time frame forces you to make very sudden and very expensive decisions. And that is not in the best interest of taxpayers. I've had a lot of experience been in a district where we built 8 new schools or had made major additions and renovations. Nothing was easy with taxpayers. We know that. It's the same right now. But they were necessary. And this is necessary. We can't continue to defer this. About a year and a half ago, I spoke with Matt, and I said, Matt, do you have any conceptual drawings of a new central office? And he said, yes, I've had them for 8, 9, 10 years. I said, let's dig them out. Because we're going to bring this issue forward, because the longer we wait, the more serious the conditions become that we have to work in, but the more expensive it becomes for taxpayers also. So it makes no sense to continue waiting. And I understand, look, I'm a taxpayer in my own community. We all are. We don't want to see our taxes increase. But there are some activities that we need to engage in that are absolutely necessary. With respect to a conference room, we had a conference room in Westwood where I worked, which was the same size as the one that's being proposed in this building. One of the most heavily used facilities and rooms in the entire school district. It's where we had all of our leadership team meetings. Very importantly, we engaged the fire department and the police department, which is something we do here also. As I've already talked with the fire department and the police department about it, we would have tabletop exercises in this conference room also on school safety issues. What happens with an intruder? What happens if there is a biological, radiological, or chemical incident? Now, granted, the chances might be slim, but what do? What happens if there's a gas leak in a building, and a major gas leak? All the types of school potential danger scenarios, we would conduct tabletop exercises with the police and fire department and our administrators in existence. The Crisis Prevention Institute, CPI training. How do we work with children who are becoming increasingly dysregulated, okay, for restraint practices? The law is very, very clear and very strict on that. And that requires training of personnel. We have people who are being trained right now as trainers, but we need space to conduct that training. And to pick up again on Naomi, we waste a lot of time traveling from place to place to attend meetings. And sometimes a Zoom meeting is an alternative, but sometimes a Zoom meeting is not as effective. When we are passing materials around, we're looking at materials, we're interacting personally in those meetings. We just can't do that online. So, you know, I'm always glad to speak in public sessions about a number of issues. And we'll continue to provide you with as much information as you need to document the existing conditions and to provide the answers that some of you have referred to as being necessary for why we need this project. Once again, facts, not emotional hyperbole, because nobody believes that. This whole school district is not going to end, okay, with a new central office or lack thereof. Will it be a tremendous hindrance? Yes, it will. But a person will not believe, nor should they believe, if we get up on a microphone and say, everything is going to fall apart if we don't have a new central office. That's the reality of the situation. So we'll continue to document the conditions. We'll continue to document the shortcomings of the functioning of the central office. And I don't only mean myself and Amy and Matt, but everyone. And the fact that being distributed throughout the entire district is extraordinarily inefficient. When you need an answer, you want an answer quickly, and you're hunting a person down because they're not 15, 20 yards away from your office. They're somewhere across the system because we can't accommodate them there. Whenever you have any questions, any suggestions that come from this meeting, please let us know, because we will put together factual information for you and for the public to make sure they have the information necessary to make an informed decision. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Go ahead, Naomi.
I was thought of an action item while you were speaking, Bill. Can we have someone we can funnel questions to so that someone can create a frequently asked questions document that we can all refer back to and can be posted on the web and everything so that we can all be working from the same document and get that information out to the public?
Yes, I'll talk with the people in the office tomorrow. They could perhaps be funneled through my administrative assistant, Sandy Swanson. I'll talk with Matt and Amy also to see if they want to be included along with myself so that we don't miss any questions. But please know that our interest is in honesty and truthfulness and factual information to the public. I've always said at town meetings over the last 40 plus years, this information is the biggest enemy of the democratic process. And so I know you're interested and we're interested in being as factual with the public as possible. Okay, giving them the numbers and the rationale for it. So I'll check with Sandy tomorrow. I'll check with Matt and Amy also, and we'll send something out to you in terms of what is the best method and who is the best person to funnel those questions to.
I would start with Mr. Krupp's questions. he had some of the best ones.
Actually, that was really great, by the way. You've been a fantastic add to the district, so I really appreciate you very much. One other thought that I had was about the conference room while you were talking there is that the town in general has a lack of conference space. I know my wife's a library trustee. You know, they have a limited number of meeting rooms or whatever, all of which are pretty small by comparison. So knowing whether or not after school hours, that the way it's designed, it seems like it is, but maybe that's available for others to use. So that'd be a good selling point as well.
100%. Absolutely.
That has been, that has always
great
been
point.
the design of that plan. Thank you for bringing that up. Is because there is such a lack of meeting space that we can actually cordon off the offices of that and open up the door, have a custodian, and have that available. It can be crochet and quilting. It can be library. It can be whatever, bigger rooms for Conservation Commission, whatever it can be. So that has always been a huge part of that plan. So thank you. I want to just absolutely address something that's come up here. First of all, I would never accuse this as the voters' issue. And if I come across angry, it is because I am. I'm too attached to this for 13 years. I'm upset that the taxpayers are put in this position. What I'm angry at is all those boards that have put us here. For 13 years, I've been working on this. We last voted on it 10, 11 years ago, and it never came up. And I've had, there's been good chairs and bad chairs. I've had some real vocal arguments with these people in total respect. Hey, how's your kid? How's the soccer? How's this doing? Hey, you're doing this. Oh, by the way. And then I go off on them. So what I'm trying to do is defend how important this is. And my anger, please, it is not towards the taxpayers. It's we're in this position. And I am thrilled to have 5 people that have finally gotten it, that have put this as a top priority. Because it is embarrassing. Everything Chris Christensen said, I'm sitting here, why? Why are these people in this position? And if we have to put them in portables, that might have to be if it doesn't get voted on in April. It's past mistakes. As you said, they sometimes make mistakes. And Matt, I think, alluded to the fact that we're not going to put the 10-year roof on this thing. So it might cost a few dollars more, but we're done with this thing because I hope my grandchildren can come back to Merrimack someday and say, wow, they have a central office building. So please don't take it as anger towards anyone in town. And I might get some angry emails from past board members. There's one here. I'm sorry, but we should not have ever been in this position to go from 1.8 to over $6 million. So am I angry? Yes, because I'm passionate about this plan. It should have been done years ago. And I'm just frustrated. That's what it is. It's not anger. It's frustration that we're here. And thankfully, we have people we have Bill here. I've never had a superintendent come to as many meetings that we've had than he has. What a commitment to this district that man is. And to come up and help us, and everything you've said has been written down and saying, we agree. So if I have to temper my comments, I appreciate you saying that, because that's not how I ever want to come across. But people have to know we're passionate about this. Gage and I have been at this for 12 years. Lori has been at it for 12, 13 years. Finley, we're just like, we knock our head against the wall. What can we do? Because we have no authority. We have no budget. We come out and we give the reports to the school board. It's totally transparent. But they have to make that decision and move on. And it hasn't happened. That's my anger. It is never towards the taxpayer, because they never got a chance to vote on it. That's what I'm screaming about. That's all they had to do is say, look, let's put it up. They might say no. But after a while, they've heard enough of this. They might say, it's got to be done. And that's what we're hoping for this year. So anything we can do, any kind of presentation, we had to show the visual, because most people have no idea how bad the buildings are inside. Most people don't even know where they are, period. So again, I apologize if this came across to people as anger. It's not. It's just frustration after 13 years of going in front of this town and the boards and saying, we need this is why. Because honest, Gary, the same problems existed when you were on the budget committee, and I talked to you then. And that's the anger, but never to a taxpayer. They just didn't get a chance, and that's not fair. Thank you.
So I'm just going to say, I think that we're at perfect timing, though, because we don't have a bond. We can get a bond. There's a perfect spot for it. And at the state legislature, they passed building aid. It hasn't gone through the Senate yet, but if that passes, we will actually be able to get some building aid that hasn't happened in years. So, we don't really want to, rest our laurels on that yet, but it looks like it's passed the House of Representatives. It's in the Senate. If we can get some building aid, that would be great for us. That's just, another positive thing, but we probably, Gary, I don't think we probably put it out there, but that's, an opportunity for us too.
Yeah, I think that would be not to put it out there just yet. Until
not to put it out there, but we're hopeful. We're hopeful that this is perfect timing, even though I understand Rich's passion, because we've all had these meetings for many, many years. So, but moving forward, I think that the two things that we need to talk about is, how are we going to get the word out through PTO meetings, booster club meetings, senior citizens, library information night, the town planning committee, MYA, the TV show, and then also get people to talk about the sign. So I think the sign thing is the easiest.
I thank you. I couldn't wait to talk about these signs. I've only been involved in a few years, but Rich is passionate in every meeting that we have like this. And I can feel it. No, I just wanted to put my support behind the signs and support them both financially, and if I can help set anything up with that. And I knew that because I was a member of the Planning and Building Committee, we wanted to make sure that was announced to the public as well. So here to help with the signs.
Great.
And then Gage was going to design the signs, right?
This is what she does.
Art class was not my strong point, so I will help whoever. But you want a marketing person, then
okay.
Yeah. And there's a couple folks out there I think that have expressed interest in helping with that piece of it too.
I do have one I put through college, so she could maybe help me out a bit.
Oh, there you go.
I can't help but step in on this. If you're going to put signs out in the road and they have more than 3 words on them, you're using up space that you shouldn't be using. You got to be able to read it, not at 30 miles an hour, but at 40 miles an hour. And it's just to look at it and recognition, because you read the sign that was in somebody's front lawn when you're walking through your neighborhood. Don't expect people to be able to read, oh, there's a meeting on March 4th. It's not going to happen. No more than 3 words.
Great point.
Yes on SAU. Yeah?
Yes on question 3.
Yeah, something like that.
That's 4 words.
So that's actually something we kind of discussed also, is the SAU. Nobody really knows what an SAU is. So we've been
Yes.
trying to just call it the central office because we figured it would be a little bit easier for people to understand what we're talking about.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
This is great because my next question was, what are our next steps? So this is a great lead in into that. So signs are great. What are some charges we can give to does our ad hoc committee have ideas for how we can get interest in this idea and this initiative? What are some things we can task for those folks? And I want to just open it up to anybody who's got input they can share.
I would say just talk to people about it so we can build that frequently asked questions list. Because all of the points have been about we're going to need to answer all the questions people are going to have. And at this early stage, like that's what we need to be thinking about.
And call me a person who likes social media, but I do like social media. And, you could take that frequently asked questions list and break it into small video segments that can be popped out onto the internet, out onto our Facebook page that could then be shared widely, so, a quick Q&A. I mean, somebody asking, even Mr. Olson or whoever, to explain why, we can't just spread everybody, like just the simple answer you just gave, like some of the information presented tonight, instead of saying, hey, go watch this hour-long board meeting because everybody has so much time for that. Maybe we take the pieces of information that were presented here and break them into frequently asked questions that are printed for people who love to read them, get that out there somehow, but also little video snippets that ask the question and get a quick answer. You can watch it in 3 minutes, you get an answer. 2 days later, another one comes out to answer another frequently asked question. I'm not the only person. I get it. I'm elderly, and that is what I like. I'm of the age that likes that. But I'm trying to think of like, what would my 18-year-old daughter or my 20-year-old son want to engage with as they vote? You know what I mean? Like, we have to think about all the different people who are going to be voting and how they might want to digest the information.
I'm agreeing with you, Jen. I think those Merrimack minutes on the bridge project on Babusick Lake, the project for the new, what was it? The town where the salt trucks are kept in.
Highway garage.
Yeah, the highway garage. I mean, so both those were pretty well publicized, and I definitely watched them all.
Might generate more videos to answer the questions that people have. You never know.
I don't know if the ad hoc folks have been given any of the plans or background information, but that I like the great point of having the ad hoc is you can have different views. People who've been on the planning building committee have been so immersed in it that it becomes almost myopic, I guess. But having the different ideas and everything, if they have that, they can see how things interact within the drawings and so on. So if that's been done, I guess, for, that if they had a contact point with, I don't know, the school board or the superintendent's office, somebody there, it would be good to have that funneled back so those, things can be asked and questions answered.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we have to be on TikTok, but I think we should think TikTok in terms of like length. These like little like minute long, 2 minute long videos that we can just put out there that people will actually sit and watch. Like you said, we're all sitting and watching 2 hour long board meetings for fun because that's what we do. But not everybody's into that. So I think short, concise, bulleted information. I think that'll be effective and go a long way for sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, Dave, do you want to say something? I can bring the microphone to you.
Learning here.
He's good.
Andy,
Yes.
Andy, can you grab it?
I'm just learning from those people who are sitting at the table and sitting in the audience. And I think if we can get that brief, understandable message, and perhaps if we could do something that would be covered by like Channel 9 or something like that, because I think in some of their ads, they feature Merrimack and talk about Merrimack with other places that are spending a lot more money on their administrative facilities. So I think if we had something that was newsworthy that we could get them to cover, that would go a long way to get things started. I don't know. There are probably much better ideas here.
There's no wrong idea.
Well, so in the interest of time, because we are creeping up on the 2-hour mark here, and I know I'm just so, crazy, right? So appreciative of everyone's time tonight. I just wanted to make sure in the next 15 minutes or so to come away from this with next steps. Is it worth tasking folks for certain initiatives here? Like we've got the signs kind of underway. Do we have a group or a team that's, I know we're all, I think, pretty available to help in any way we can, but, do we have folks that can put together videos and things like that that might be able to assist with something? Do we have resources? Maybe this could be a student project or something. I don't know.
I mean, I have a cell phone. I'm really good at TikTok videos. Just kidding. I've never been on TikTok in my life. That's a joke. But it doesn't have to be fancy.
Okay.
I don't think. I don't believe it has to be fancy. I think the more sort of, what's the word?
Natural?
Yeah, homegrown it is, the more just you and me having a conversation. You and me. I don't mean you and me. Me, somebody and another person just having a conversation, and it's a quick snippet. Even just an easy, recording and just putting it out there. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Listen, I'm feel free to disagree with me, but I don't think it has to be anything super slick and spectacular. I just think it has to be thoughtfully answering a question.
Yeah, I would agree.
Good question.
Good questions. The questions that were presented tonight.
Yeah.
Our town departments utilize social media regularly. There's all the projects, as Gary had spoken about just a bit ago, are all put out on there, and just little quick things. The media department does it. I don't know how that interaction works between the school district and our town media department. I would think that they would do that as well.
I mean, if
those
you're looking
things-
for somebody to pick that one up, I would be happy to contact Nick and figure out how we could work that out.
Because those work very well, because there are a lot of people that still utilize Facebook, and the ability to share that movie clip. I do the town stuff regularly. I'll pass it on just so the few folks that I have there that see my stuff, they'll see that. And if some of them pass around, it's a great way to get the thing spinning around and have conversations anyhow.
I think the first step, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way my mind works, the first step would be printing out the frequently asked questions and then the answers to them. Not that they have to be then read. You know what I'm saying? But here's the list of we think are the frequently asked questions. Here are the answers for someone who would prefer to read it. And then we could take each one and break it into a 2 to 3 minute video where somebody's saying, hey, so one of the questions, and then the person answers, whoever it is. And it might be Bill one time, it might be somebody else another time, however that works out. It doesn't have to be Bill answering every question, it could be
No, in
whoever.
fact, I think it would be best to spread it around.
I totally agree. Yeah.
It'd be good to keep
I
it
was
in a
gonna
little
say
bit of a
maybe
review
Rich
cycle
could-
also,
Sorry.
to make sure we don't end up with foot and mouth disease.
Yeah.
Is your microphone on? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
no, I said it would be good to have it be funneled through a single source, so we have a little bit of a review cycle to it, so we don't really.
Same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And that's why I suggested, is there someone that we can funnel all of our questions to, and then the document gets edited and all of that, so that it like.
I think we're going to get an answer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lori.
And I was going to say, and maybe Rich could create a spreadsheet with someone's help. Like, the first time we did this, you did 13 different events. Like, so if you broke it down and you said, okay, so someone has to go to the PTO meeting at Thornton's Ferry, someone has to go, we could double up, like we could, double date, and go and do the presentations,
nice.
and you have MYA, make it weird. You have the library, you have, and we could put that
Yeah,
together.
absolutely. No, places, find out the next meetings for the
Yeah.
town places during the month of February.
Great. All right. So it sounds to me like we have compiling questions and getting those answers, coming up with a document that can be shared and spread around. And then once we have that information, working on clips. And then in the meantime, seeing what events are coming up in the next few weeks that we might be able to give a little spiel at. I think that's a really, and signs. Don't forget the signs. I think that's a great start. I think this is hopefully going to build the right kind of momentum, right kind of initiative. Just like to one more time open it up. Any other closing thoughts here as we start to wrap things up tonight? Good. All right. Wow.
We're good.
Great. Well, thank you so much once again, everybody, for coming tonight, sharing your ideas, sharing your questions, providing your feedback. This is hopefully the first in a really great sequence of events that's going to happen in the next couple months. I really look forward to working with everybody to get this project done. So thank you again.
Thank you,
for all
Ken.
your help.
Appreciate it.
Is this going to meet any quasi? We're going to try to meet quasi regularly, or is this?
I think we should meet again. Yeah, for sure. There's no schedule.